There's two storylines right now that have been completely captivating me that have something in common. They're both about love. In WWE, it's the Dominik Mysterio and Liv Morgan revenge story. In AEW, it's the Toni Storm, Mina Shirakawa, Mariah May love triangle. Each one uses professional wrestling to tell unique stories about the power of love to alter lives and change the world, in very different ways. And each has had profoundly different responses online. Love stories in professional wrestling usually don't end up with particularly empowering looks for the women, but I think these two stories are proof of just how far we've come. Today, on Wrestling with Story, I'm going to talk about both stories and why only one of them seems to be getting controversial heat online. Three times a week, I make videos about writing and storytelling in professional wrestling. If you like videos like this one, please click subscribe, like, and share. It makes sure that you can stay up to date and that I can keep making more videos and maybe even make a living doing it. All right, on to the show. Okay, short history lesson. Liv Morgan is on a revenge tour against Rhea Ripley, her former friend and tag team partner. Following an injury at Rhea's hands that put Liv on the shelf, Rhea got injured by Liv and had to relinquish the belt, ultimately having it land in the hands of Becky Lynch. Now, Rhea's, let's call him boy toy, Dominik Mysterio, is tasked by Rhea to get revenge on Liv, while simultaneously, Liv makes it known that she's going to destroy Rhea's stable, the Judgment Day, and steal Dominik away from Rhea. Dom tries to help Becky retain her title and ends up handing it to Liv by mistake. Then, through a series of bungling mistakes, keeps finding himself drawn in closer and closer to Liv's clutches, angering the off-camera Rhea Ripley. What we're watching is an increasingly desperate Dom get seduced by a Liv who, we think, is totally just doing this out of spite. But she's so aggressive and so sexually suggestive, well, it's just hard for a dumbass like Dominik to remember that. This story is great because it does something immensely unique. It's made Dominik Mysterio, who is one of the most hated heels in WWE, into a genuine sympathetic character, as he's so clearly in over his head and is struggling to do the right thing, which he's beyond ill-equipped to handle. Over in AEW, we have the story of Toni Storm, the demented movie starlet, and her doting assistant Mariah May. Mariah plainly worships the ground that Toni walks on, seemingly going beyond just the platonic relationship that's shown. Slowly, over time, through touching and some pretty chaste kissing, it's implied that there is indeed more than just the business-like relationship we've been seeing. Before Mariah May came to AEW, she was at the Japanese promotion Stardom, and she had a very similar relationship with her tag team partner, Mina Shirakawa. Their relationship was always implied to have a romantic component. When Mariah May gets jumped by an opponent, Mina shows up and saves her. And in the reunion, they share champagne. And a kiss, which sets off Toni Storm. Over the next few weeks, the two women began to feud over Mariah May, culminating in a match at Forbidden Door to essentially claim dominion over Mariah May. Mariah is stuck in the middle, and she just wants everyone to get along. Toni ultimately won the match, but thanks to Mariah's diplomacy, she accepted Mina seemingly into their relationship, creating what behind-the-scenes footage strongly implied was a throuple between the three of them. What unites both of these stories, beyond just theme, is that they're grounding their stories from a place of emotion. Liv is lashing out at Rhea and her relationship with Dom out of spite. But what we're seeing, or at least suspect we're seeing, is genuine emotions beginning to build between them. Similarly, the relationship between Toni Storm and Mariah May was started as a transactional one. Mariah May was a fangirl, desperate to work for Toni Storm, and has served as a sort of Gal Friday for her. But again, genuine emotions have grown to supplant those. Where I think the Toni Storm story succeeds a bit more is that all three members of the triangle are actually active members of the story. By having Rhea Ripley be absent from the story, it leaves the characters to be all sort of guessing at her emotional response, rather than having her be present for it. That being said, the Toni Storm story is a bit broader in execution because Toni is just a more cartoonish character than any of the WWE counterparts. Then there's the elephant in the room. The online controversy that having a homosexual relationship portrayed gets versus a heteronormative one. I was hard-pressed to find discussion of the Toni Storm story that didn't have some kind of negativity associated with the story in the comments section. Which, look, it's a comment section, so what do you expect? But it's still a bit surprising because the story has been so well executed, with all three women given agency, purpose, and humanity in a way that few stories in wrestling do. It's been handled with the utmost care while still being romantic, funny, action-packed, and sexy. It also has one very big benefit over the Dom and Liv story. It was resolved with actual wrestling involving all three characters. Because they're all women, they could all be involved physically in the match, which got us to a very satisfying conclusion. I do also wonder about how Liv Morgan is portrayed on the WWE story, as she plays heavily into Dominik as daddy and really overplays her sexuality. But as she's using it as a weapon, I think it walks the line pretty intelligently. Now, wrestling in general has a predominantly male demographic, and certainly the responses I've seen in my posts and videos about the feuds have been mostly from men. So I'm curious for any women who have been watching both stories, how do you feel about how these stories have portrayed the women in them? All in all, love stories in wrestling don't have a particularly great history for the women who take part in them. These two stories in particular seem to be a step in the right direction. What are some of your favorite love stories in wrestling? How do you feel about the handling of women in wrestling today? Post in the comments below to let me know. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time on Wrestling with Story.